The Poleaxe, or also known as Mordaxt in Germany, spread throughout Europe from the 14th century. It was used until the 17th century and was thus for a long time an effective weapon in the feudal armies of European powers, and a popular weapon in knightly duels. There are a number of manuscripts describing the use of the Poleaxe. It is striking that this weapon is often depicted with a beak and a hammer. Also, this pole weapon had many variations. The top part always consisted of hammer, beak and axe blade in all combinations. However, all weapons had the spear-like tip at the end in common. It was on average a little shorter than a halberd, about man-high, and was an effective weapon for armed fighters and against them. In this video you can expect a few basic movement patterns that should facilitate the handling of this extraordinary weapon and are suitable as a good introduction to the art of fencing with this knightly warhammer. The poleaxe is held with both hands, slightly above shoulder width. The thumbs can both point forward or toward each other, depending on how we hold the axe and what seems more comfortable. Changing the front hand is not uncommon, because quick changes of the grip and the use of both ends of the weapon are essential for close combat techniques. Let's move on to the guards. First we see the upper guard. The left and the right upper guard differ noticeably, mainly because the freedom of movement is somewhat limited in armored duels. Crossed arms do occur from time to time with the Mordaxt, but generally speaking should be avoided. The lower guard. The side guard. Again, this guard is different on both sides for the reasons mentioned before. The middle guard. This is our most used guard next to the upper guard. With outstretched arms we have here the straight parry or the long point. Depending on whether we have an opponent with or without armor in front of us, we step or press. The basic movement remains the same. We push the weapon into the long point, with or without fencing step. This also works from the upper guard. For a little bit more reach, we push the weapon through the front hand and place the shaft under the arm for stabilization. A passing step gives us additional reach. Sliding the shaft through the hand can also be done in a simpler way from above or from the middle guard, with a small fencing step, a quick and effective thrust. With a passing step and a one-handed thrust we can bridge the greatest distance. But be careful, the beak can get stuck in the ground. To avoid this, it is advisable to turn the poleaxe 90 degrees during the thrust. Going into a hanging after the thrust prevents being completely open. Before we get to the strikes, I would like to tell you about the bodywork. The hip movement is essential when we do alternating strikes without crossing the arms. Also in this way we can put the whole body into the strike. When we turn the hips, the arms can move freely on both sides, an important aspect for our poleaxe strikes. Of course, we do not remain static. The movement can be combined wonderfully with small steps. The upper strike, cut halfway into the middle guard and all the way into the lower guard. The same from below, from the side guards. We could do a lot of striking work with the same leg in front of us, but of course a who can also be done with a passing step, greater reach, more power. Same with the lower strike. Now we come to the alternating cross strikes. They are struck all the way through and pass through the side guards. With momentum we then come back into the upper guards. Remember that we do not want to cross our arms here. That's why we have seen the two different upper guards at the beginning. As you can see, we alternate here the different sides of the Warhammer. In this case we sometimes hit with the beak and sometimes with the hammerhead. The same from below. Actually, this is the same movement, just the other way around. Here you can see very well how important the hip rotation is. You can put a lot of power into the strikes. And nevertheless, it is possible to always strike with the same part of the Warhammer by changing the grip after each blow. To do this, we bring our hands together and spin the hammer around. For extra power and reach, we can also move the front hand behind the back hand as we whirl around. After that, however, you are very exposed. The pole or Mordaxt is an excellent weapon against armor because of its penetrating power, but it is also very well suited to be wielded by armored fencers. In the ranks of Landsknecht troops, it was used in dense crowds and was deployed together with battle swords and halberds to push back advancing troops. The Mordaxt is therefore a weapon that works very well even in dense or close combat. Both ends are used for thrusting and striking. Leverage is used for wrestling. The basic movements shown here are to help us handle the complexities of dueling, and that means that the big fun begins as soon as you meet another fighter with a Mordaxt.